This is CBC Winnipeg News.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us. Our weird weather remains the big topic of conversation tonight. It has been so mild for so long, many staples of a Manitoba winter are melting away, and that's causing problems for people who rely on snow and cold. CBC's Josh Crabb shows us how the balmy weather is interfering with popular activities.
Dave Taylor is getting in a ski in Wildwood. The groomed tracks remain open and intact for now, but this warm weather isn't sitting well with winter enthusiasts like Taylor.
I'm also a skater. I love skating on the river trail as well, and I haven't even been out for a skate on the river trail this year yet, which is a bit disappointing.
He's talking about the Nestawaya Trail, which opened for all of 5 days before being forced to shut down due to this week's mild and unseasonably warm weather. It's a similar story over at Windsor Park Nordic Centre. The cross-country ski trails have been temporarily closed until it gets colder.
All the energy that all the different organizations put into making winter such a great time for Winnipeggers all require that winter actually show up.
Environment and Climate Change Canada meteorologist Terry Lang says 54 temperature records have been broken in Manitoba alone over the past 4 days.
El Niño's back after a bit of a brief respite.
All this warm weather means some changes for Festival de Voyageurs, which starts in just over 2 weeks' time. It means you may not see as many of the festival's signature snow sculptures this year. Normally, you would see sculptures like this being carved out of snow throughout Voyageur Park and around the city to help showcase Francophone and Métis history. Festival de Voyageurs Executive Director Brianne Lavallee-Heckert tells us as long as they don't melt, sculptors will still have a few blocks of snow to work with. Some will instead use other materials, including hay and wood. Well, El Niño's at play this year. Lavallee-Heckert says it's creating conversations about the impact of climate change on future festivals.
Our festival, as a winter festival, we need to adapt and we need to be innovative, but at the same time we also need to be careful and not contribute to the problem as well.
Snow sculptor Gary Tessier has already watched this work of art melt away.
It was 2.5 meters square. We lost just about a meter on this in the last 4 days.
He does some work for Festival, but this sculpture of 2 mugs with candy canes on them was designed by school children from Sage Creek. Tessier still hopes it can be salvaged, but it all depends on the weather.
This year is exceptional. We've seen some tough years in the past, but this year is really exceptional.
And at least for now, it's expected to stay this way for the foreseeable future. Josh Crabb, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Our weather specialist Riley Leitchuk joins us now. Riley, are there any parts of this province that still have lots of snow?
Yes, Janet. Northern Manitoba by far still has the most snowpack out of the province. Have a look at this map behind me, because this really goes to show how much snow we've seen melting, even in the last week to few days or so here. So remember a couple weeks ago I was showing you this and we had a good 10 to 15 centimeters on the ground across southern Manitoba. Well, in the Morden-Winkler area, just 2 to 5 centimeters of snow on the ground right now. 5 to 10 out into the eastern part of Manitoba. I was out east of the city today, and I can tell you that there is not a lot of snow on the ground in some places in Eastman. In Westman, we do see some of the more heavier pockets of snow in Riding Mountain National Park. However, for the bulk of the Westman region, still not a lot of snow on the ground. Like I mentioned, where there is snow is northern Manitoba. 20 to 30 centimeters in the more northernmost and northeasternmost portions of Manitoba. So that is one area where you will find some snow, and in really no cold weather and no precipitation in the forecast either. As we look at the temperature trend into Friday, staying above the 0 mark, into Saturday even starting the day above the 0 mark as well, and that continues as we get into both Sunday and Monday. I will have more on a fog advisory coming up, Janet, when I come back in a few minutes.
Thank you very much, Riley. The Manitoba government is promising to give school divisions more money. It's giving trustees the right, once again, to raise property taxes. The CBC's Ian Fraze explains.
Grade 4, right? See, I could tell. Not bad, because I used to, kind of guess.
The former school principal says the NDP government is treating the education sector right.
I'm proud to say our government is funding schools at the level they need.
In front of some well-behaved students, Education Minister Nello Altamar says this year school funding will keep pace with inflation. School divisions will get an average 3.4% bump in operating funding. On top of that, $27 million to expand the school nutrition program and $3 million to hire 30 teachers heading to elementary classrooms.
We're going to deliver stable, predictable funding that meets their operational needs.
If school boards don't agree, they can raise property taxes. That's a change. Under the Tories, school boards were forbidden from raising taxes. Altamar says he won't tell divisions what to do.
They are certainly in touch with their community members, and we trust them to do the right thing when it comes to that.
Overall, the province will give schools just over $100 million in new funding, similar to what the PCs gave last year. Interim Tory leader Wayne Owasco sees a double standard.
Some of our education partners criticize that. And this year, we're looking at this announcement by the current NDP government, and they're going to get some accolades.
The Tories were regularly accused in government of underfunding education. Nathan Martindale leads the Manitoba Teachers Society.
So in terms of predictability and sustainability, we're excited that the government is going in the right direction with this.
But Owasco says he's worried 10 of Manitoba's school divisions will get operating funding increases of 1% or less. He questions what the NDP is thinking. Ian Fraze, CBC News, Winnipeg.
It's been open for more than a decade, but Winnipeg's multi-million-dollar birthing center has not been able to help nearly as many mothers as it targeted. It was expected to handle up to 500 births a year, but so far, it hasn't even hit half of that. CBC's Brittany Greenslade reports.
It was pitched as a less expensive alternative for women looking to give birth outside of hospitals, a place where soon-to-be moms would be connected with a midwife.
A really reaffirming sort of experience, and I think that's what we want for people who are giving birth, right? We want it to be the best experience as possible.
Ottaman, previously known as the Birth Centre, opened in 2011 with a goal of handling 500 births annually. However, more than a decade later, the centre is not delivering on expectations, and staff say they've hit a tipping point.
The way the resources are right now, I would say no. We can't safely actually support more than, I would say, I think we've reached up to almost 300 at one point. That would be the max of what we could do right now.
According to the Winnipeg Regional Health Authority, in its first full year of operation, 120 babies were born at Ottaman. That number has slowly increased each year, peaking in 2019 and 2020 when 237 babies were born, less than 50% of the goal. Executive Director Kemlyn Nemard says that target is simply not attainable with current staffing and funding levels.
We would need a lot more supports to be able to do that. And so, in a lot of ways, we need more midwives trained in the province, more funding for midwives, and more supports for the birth center assistants.
Hi. The WRHA says more than a quarter of women who requested a midwife last year were unable to get one. And the College of Midwives noted that only 3 students are expected to graduate from the province's program this spring. It comes after a controversial 2016 shutdown of the program.
The impacts of the previous government cutting that program, attacking midwives, forcing them away from their chosen career paths that they were passionate about. We're feeling those impacts right now in Manitoba.
The health minister says they've been in contact with the Women's Health Clinic that runs the facility to understand what's needed.
We are going to work with them, listen to them, not only to create job opportunities for midwives, but to make sure that families and women across the province have access to the midwives that they need.
And the choice to birth how and where they want. Brittany Greenslade, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Well, it is dangerous, detectable, and definitely illegal. That is part of the message in a new campaign by Winnipeg Police against driving while high. Soon you'll see billboards and messages on social media like these, reminding people that driving impaired by any substance is illegal. The city is also in the midst of a Road Watch driving enforcement campaign, one that identifies and tests drivers under the influence. Patrol Sergeant Stefan Fontaine says since they started doing check stops last month, almost half of the drivers tested were under the influence of cannabis.
What we're finding is that there are many misconceptions. One is that cannabis somehow makes you a better driver. Well, that's simply wrong. The stats show that the risk of getting into a collision more than doubles for cannabis users.
Fontaine hopes the billboard and social media initiatives reinforce the message that you should not drive while impaired by any substance. The Don't Drive High campaign runs through the end of this month. A Winnipeg football folk hero says he is thrilled to be coming back to the Peg. Chris Streveler signed a one-year deal with the Blue Bombers yesterday. He helped the Bombers break their 29-year Grey Cup drought back in 2019, and he did so playing on a broken ankle. Streveler left soon after to try playing in the NFL. He says he learned a lot in his time there and is a better quarterback now than when he left the Bombers.
I'm just very excited to, get to come back up to the CFL and kind of share some of that experience being a veteran guy now, leaving in my second year, coming back. Now this is going to be, my seventh year playing professional. So coming back with a completely different mindset, completely different perspective. I'm just really, really excited to get to bring that energy and excitement to the team. Whatever we need to do to win football games, that's what I want to do. That's what this is about. That's why I'm here. It's not for any other reason than I still have fire and passion to play the game, and I want to win football games. And so that's what I'm going to do. That's always been my mindset from 2018 until now. I will do whatever it takes to help the team win games, and that's not changing anytime soon.
Streveler says he loves Winnipeg. He loves the fans here, and he's excited to play in the CFL once again. Riley joins us once again. You were talking about fog when we last saw you.
Yes, we are expecting a foggy night ahead across southern Manitoba. In fact, we have a fog advisory even, Janet, that has been issued in the last hour or so for parts of southern Manitoba. Here's a live look outside from the roof of our CBC building here in downtown Winnipeg. And you can see that low cloud has been hanging around as we got through the day today. The cloud itself really not that strong, or not that thick, I should say, but yeah, it was certainly keeping the sun out. Here is a look now at Brandon in comparison. This from ebrandon.ca. You can see how thick the fog already is in the Brandon region this evening. You can barely see. This is looking south from the North Hill of Brandon, so that just gives you a sense of how foggy it is. So here is the fog advisory. Brandon in that now, as is Killarney, Pilot Mound, Manitou, the Portage La Prairie, Headingley region, and along Highway 75, up including the city of Winnipeg. So we're expecting a foggy night tonight, and that could mean zero or near zero visibility on highways this evening. So if you have to do any highway travel tonight, give yourself some extra time, or maybe even rethink some of that, because the recipe is there for some fog throughout the evening and into the early morning hours tomorrow. As I mentioned, that cloud is really not all that thick, but certainly it did kind of block out the sun from us here in the Red River Valley. I know back to the west, we did see a little bit of sun in parts of Westman this afternoon. Northern Manitoba starting to clear out as we get through the night tonight as well, as we did see some cloud cover through parts of the north. So right now, -1 at the airport, reading a cloudy reading, but it's been bouncing back and forth between cloudiness, fogginess, and mist through the afternoon. So here's what's ahead as we get into the day on Friday. We are looking at that cloud still kind of hanging around. I think Futurecast is not putting as much cloud as we'll see first thing in the morning tomorrow, but certainly expecting some patchy fog across southern Manitoba. By the time we get into Saturday, though, we do start to see a little bit more cloud cover building in once again, and that's what's going to hang around into the weekend. I did put a slim chance of showers in the forecast as we head into the day on Sunday as well. So looking at that visibility forecast, you can see the forecast prediction here giving us a fairly good chance of widespread fog really across southern Manitoba. Visibility is down to about 200 meters in the Portage area, 2.5 kilometers in the Winnipeg region. So fairly widespread, and that continues to see the visibility is decreasing as we get into the early morning hours, even into the Brandon and Winnipeg regions. So like I said, take care if you have to be out anywhere tonight or early morning, because we could be in some pretty dense fog through the night tonight. So -3 in Winnipeg, fog patches tonight. First thing in the morning, we're looking at a -1 with mainly cloudy skies. South winds at 15 with fog patches and into the afternoon. +2, I think we'll start to see some sunny breaks, especially later into the afternoon tomorrow. Winds south gusting to 30 in the afternoon. So looking at the weekend ahead, 3 degrees on the way for Saturday. Slim chance of some showers on Sunday, as I mentioned. And Janet, we're looking at a mostly cloudy sky on Monday, maybe some snow into next week. And I'll talk about that a bit later in the show.
Thank you, Riley.
You're welcome.
It is February 1st, the first day of Black History Month in Canada. I picked up the phone earlier today and called Warren Clark, an assistant professor at the University of Manitoba's Department of Anthropology. Hello, Warren. Thank you for being with us.
Well, thank you very much, and thanks for calling me earlier. Much appreciated.
Well, here is why I called you. What do you think we should be thinking and talking about in Manitoba this month?
Well, as much as we should be thinking and reflecting on Black experiences, I'm one to always encourage deep critical thinking and also cultural competency when it comes to different people's racial, ethnic experiences, including Black experiences of different ethnicities, genders, sexualities. So we shouldn't just name it down to a month, but this is an opportunity for us to start that type of conversation and encourage people to think critically about after February and how we can still appreciate Black experiences.
And how would you encourage us to do so, to move forward?
Well, I think first off, when we talk about cultural competency, it's a moment of also understanding. It encourages people to think critically about it's an ongoing process of learning people's different cultural realities, and you will never stop learning. Just like when you have to update your cell phone in an evening where you didn't expect to update it, we should also be treating ourselves and updating ourselves with different people's cultural realities as well. So one ways of methods of doing that is participating in events, participating in different community programs. Also, there's tons of literature and movies and TV shows these days, which keeps people can keep people to know how you can be competent in learning different cultural realities.
Cultural competency you're talking about. What could be the danger of, say, assuming that the experience of one person from the Black diaspora would be the same as someone else's?
That's a good question. We do that type of thinking and type of engagement. We're homogenizing, or if for folks, so what I mean by that is we're grouping people together. We see that, we live that very comfortably, I should say, in our Canadian moments. Using terms such as BIPOC. It's a way to acknowledge that people who are not white, but then again, it's grouping people together to explain that they are not white and they're also the same. We also have to be very wary of sameness about people who are racialized, and in doing so, we are paying attention to different intersectionalities and different lived experiences. For example, Winnipeg is a growing community in terms of the Nigerian community as an example. There's a lot of people who are not from Nigeria, but by identifying people as one group, it strips people of their identity and individuality. So we have to be mindful of that. And speaking about cultural competency, yet again, it's an opportunity to actually explore what that means in terms of understanding difference, but appreciating difference and openness to doing so.
You encourage us to all attend events and learn more. There is an event coming up on, I believe it's February 6th, talking about how anti-Black racism could become a mental health issue. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, this is our second time doing this event here in Winnipeg, and really appreciate the community seeing the value in such a program, because this is not people coming out to an event to listen to Dr. Warren Clark speak. This is about us listening to one another, but most importantly, appreciating the vulnerabilities from many of our Black community members. Last year, for example, when we did hold the event, we had an amazing panel discussion, but we also had a deep critical engagement with the community members, the audience members, who were sharing some of the things that they've experienced here in the city, how anti-Black racism has contributed and created barriers to employment, housing, for example, even education, which was a common theme. But most importantly, was for folks who stand in solidarity with the Black community to actually learn, listen, but also understand. And even if folks in the Black community, it was also a different way of experiencing, approaching this conversation for many people who attended, on how we can be more attentive to how anti-Blackness can be a concern for Black community members based on gender, sexuality, even age or social class. And to amplify or to further speak on this event is just doing so. Last year we had amazing 5 panelists. This year we're up to 10 panelists, and we've stretched it from a 2-hour event to 2.5-hour event. And that's the calls from the community. That's not something that I came up with and said we should just do it. That's the feedback and the testimonials we received from last year. That it should be a little bit longer. We should have more voices involved. And we're very humbled to have the Minister of Health join the conversation with us on February 6th.
Warren Clark, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate you.
About 4 million Canadians have criminal records. Yet, despite a nationwide labor shortage, a new report has found many businesses are unwilling to hire people with a conviction, no matter how minor. More on that story after the break. Roughly 4 million Canadians have criminal records. Despite a nationwide labor shortage, a new report finds many businesses are unwilling to hire people who've had a prior conviction, no matter how minor. CBC's Mike Crowley reports.
Comeback Snacks is a small Ontario company. that ships its flavored popcorn across the country. Emily O'Brien is its founder and CEO. She came up with the idea for her business when she was in prison.
For smuggling narcotics into Canada. But I still believed myself and I knew it wasn't the end.
O'Brien also knew that after getting out, finding a job could be a big challenge.
How can I make a comeback? How can I turn this around? And as I was talking with my other fellow inmates, I realized that we all had so much potential and we all just needed another chance.
O'Brien launched her business in 2020 and since then has hired 8 people who had criminal records, giving them part-time marketing jobs.
They have been the best. Like, they have been so reliable.
That approach makes her something of an exception in Canada. Researchers commissioned by the John Howard Society of Ontario interviewed HR managers across Canada. Nearly half said they absolutely will not hire someone with any criminal record.
They would discard that application, and it didn't matter whether the record was old, what type of offense it was, whether it was relevant to the position.
Policy analyst Safia Hussein points to research from the US and other countries suggesting companies who refuse to hire workers with records may be missing out.
People with past criminal justice involvement have lower turnover, equal or better performance, equal or lower recruitment costs, and there's no difference in terms of risk of misconduct.
It's bringing calls for governments across Canada to take action.
Introduce a tax incentive for employers to hire people with criminal records. We think that this would go a long way to giving employers just that added boost to go and make that hire.
The human rights codes in British Columbia, Quebec, and Newfoundland and Labrador now prohibit workplace discrimination against people whose criminal records are unrelated to their job. The John Howard Society's report urges all provinces to do the same. Mike Crowley, CBC News, Vaughan, Ontario.
The federal government has introduced legislation to delay the expansion of Canada's medical assistance in dying program to the mentally ill until at least 2027. Ottawa says the healthcare system is not yet prepared to extend eligibility to include those whose sole underlying condition is mental illness.
What we are saying to Canadians is that because of the significance of the decision, because of the nature of the consequences of this kind of policy, we have to ensure that we get it right, and we are determined to do just that. And putting a pause on it for the next 3 years will ensure the system readiness, which is what the healthcare system has indicated is required and what Canadians are asking.
The federal government says provinces and territories have said they need more time to get ready. The bill calls for at least a 3-year pause before MAID eligibility can be expanded, and for further study by a joint committee within the next 2 years. The decision is getting some pushback from advocates and a group of senators. Parliament must move quickly to pass this legislation before the expansion automatically takes effect on March 17th. The number of people killed in Israel's Gaza offensive is staggering. Many more have been wounded, and some of those wounds are devastating. The CBC's Caroline Bargut looks at one of the most heartbreaking groups of victims, child amputees.
Before the war, Mustafa Shehna used to run around with his friends. Now the 12-year-old spends his days trying to sell boxes of juice on the side of the road. I sit in the sun just so I can try and get something for us to eat, he says. Mustafa lost his leg early on in the war when a building he was in was bombed. His uncle was killed. Mustafa now lives in the south with his extended family in a makeshift camp. His parents are still trapped in the north. No one looks at me, he says. I want someone to come and take me out of here. UNICEF estimates at least 1,000 children have had one or two of their legs amputated through to the end of November, but it doesn't have updated numbers.
I had many patients, most of them children. Even I had babies.
Surgeon Aldo Rodriguez spent 5 weeks in Gaza with Doctors Without Borders. He was shocked at how many amputations he had to perform on children, even toddlers.
I didn't understand why a patient had 1 year, 2 years baby had to suffer an amputation.
Palestinian doctor Ismail Al-Hams says because of the lack of resources, they were forced to sacrifice limbs in order to save lives. We have to be able to care for every patient that comes to us, not at the level we would like, but at the level we must accept, he says. That level includes performing some amputations without anesthesia or pain medicine for recovery.
The degree of pain unmanaged post-operatively would be absolutely unimaginable.
Canadian orthopedic surgeon Dr. Deirdre Noonan has previously worked with amputees in Gaza. She says children can have a normal life, but only if a number of conditions are met.
It's not only surgery, it's not only a prosthesis, it's not only medical care, it's the whole 360-degree picture that would need to be in place for Palestinian people who have sustained an amputation.
Even before the war, she says there was a long wait for prosthetics because of Israel's blockade on Gaza, which restricts the importation of some medical devices and supplies. When Mustafa grows up, he says he wants to be able to walk like other kids and hopes he'll be able to get a prosthetic leg to help him do that. Caroline Bargood, CBC News, Winnipeg.
The suspect remains at large today after an attack last night in London. British police say he splashed victims with a corrosive substance. Authorities are describing injuries to 2 victims as potentially life-changing. CBC's Abby Kuavasan reports.
It was here in the southwest London neighborhood where this incident took place yesterday evening. A man reportedly attacked a family in their vehicle by dousing them with what police are calling a corrosive substance. The victims include a 31-year-old woman and her 2 young daughters, an 8-year-old and a 3-year-old. The authorities say that the woman and the youngest daughter have now sustained life-changing injuries. One of the witnesses on the scene said that the woman was heard shouting, "I can't see, I can't see." Some of the bystanders did try to come to the aid of the family. 3 of them were taken to hospital and treated for minor injuries, as were 5 police officers who were responding to the emergency call. Just a short while ago, London Metropolitan Police Superintendent Gabriel Cameron gave a short news conference where he confirmed that a manhunt was underway for the suspect. He confirmed the suspect is a 35-year-old male from Newcastle and that he's sustained serious injuries to his face. Police believe this to be a targeted attack, but have asked the public not to approach the suspect. Again, a massive manhunt underway for a suspect accused of attacking a woman and her 2 children last night. Abby Kuavasan, CBC News, London.
Disgruntled farmers in France and Belgium have shown up in force for a summit of European leaders in Brussels. A line of tractors and other pieces of farm equipment rolled into the Belgian capital last night. It's an extension of a days-long protest that's seen farmers blocking highways around Paris. They are demanding the relaxation of the European Union's agriculture policies. Farmers in France have won some concessions from their government. They say they'll end their protests in the next day or so. Some deep-sea explorers think they may have solved one of the greatest aviation mysteries of the 20th century.
On the last lap of her magnificent flight round the world by way of the equator, Miss Amelia Earhart was lost in mid-ocean.
That was July of 1937. Now, a 3-month search has produced this, a grainy sonar image of what might be Amelia Earhart's plane. A crew from a company called Deep Sea Vision used this sophisticated submersible to scour more than 13,000 square kilometers of ocean floor in the Central Pacific. The image in that sonar image, the object rather, is about the same size and shape as Earhart's Lockheed aircraft. It was found in about 5,000 meters of water, about 160 kilometers from Howland Island. Earhart was heading there for a planned refueling stop when she disappeared. It's a box, just a normal box, right? But it's full of other boxes, full of hockey cards, a big find. A Saskatchewan family has found this big box filled with more than a dozen unopened boxes containing thousands of precious collector cards. We're going to talk about this rare find after the break. Another of those high-profile, high-bid auctions is underway online. The prize this time isn't a piece of jewelry or some titan of history's personal belongings. It's a box of hockey cards. CBC's Jason Warwick explains why it's so special.
Hockey cards, a childhood obsession for many of us. Gems like Mike Bossy, Ray Bourque, Doug Gilmour, or Mark Messier. Or greats like Stan Mikita, Gordie Howe, or Terry Sawchuk discovered in your grandparents' basement. A few of us got lucky and contained a pack that opened the ultimate prize, a 1979 Wayne Gretzky O-Pee-Chee rookie card. Cards like this with rounded corners and other imperfections are likely worth only a few $100s.
On the other hand, mint-condition Gretzky rookie cards can fetch more than $100,000. One recently sold for nearly $4 million. That's why the card collector community is buzzing about a Saskatchewan family's discovery. In their Regina home, they found a large box, and inside, more than a dozen other boxes, all completely sealed. Thousands of 1979 O-Pee-Chee cards.
To come across a find like this is super rare. Regardless of your location. And so, yeah, I was pretty excited to hear about it.
They've put the whole thing up for auction, and some estimate there could be more than 24 of those coveted Gretzky rookie cards inside.
Oh, it was incredible. I think the exact words I said and texted back to him was, "Oh my God." No one had ever seen one of these cases before. No one has even heard of one or pictured one before. So when I had seen it, I was floored.
Simon's had it carefully packaged and shipped to the U.S. In less than a week, the bidding has already topped $1.3 million. Haney says the boxes look brand new.
They look immaculate, like they look super white, so doesn't look like there's any humidity issues, and obviously no, yellowing from any sort of light.
The family is asking to remain anonymous. It's unclear what a buyer will do with the box. Keep it closed, open a few of the smaller boxes, or open them all and carefully extract any Gretzky cards. But one thing is clear, this rare discovery is unlike any other. And sports fans and collectors, they'll be watching. Jason Warwick, CBC News, Saskatoon.
A new study suggests sea otters play an important role in helping fight climate change. Their voracious appetite might help reduce erosion along parts of the Pacific coast, including the shorelines of California and BC. Anand Ram explains.
Life is pretty chill for otters here along California's central coast. As the top predator, they swim and eat and eat.
They eat about a quarter to a third of their body weight every single day. So whatever they're eating, they're going to have big impacts on that.
Here in this Monterey Bay marsh, the otters are part of a simple but vital food web. There's the dominant plant, pickleweed. Its roots are eaten by shore crabs, and then the otters eat the crabs, thousands upon thousands of them a year.
It was a very, very clever experiment.
Researchers figured out what was happening by setting up zones where otters couldn't get in.
So they take some essentially netting and they build little fences around squares of pickleweed, but they leave a little gap underneath the netting so that the crabs can come and go from the enclosure.
Where the otters could get in showed a dramatic difference.
The pickleweed is healthier and the ground is firmer, and the erosion appears to be less.
It's similar to the effect otters have had in British Columbia over the last 50 years, eating sea urchins and allowing kelp to thrive, which helps fight climate change.
They're photosynthetic organisms, and so they are absorbing carbon. They're sequestering carbon.
There's a similar climate benefit on the California coast. Healthier pickleweed means better shoreline protection.
They're sort of like the first line of defense, buffering the inland areas and inland habitats from sea level rise and from massive storm events.
A key role for these predators just by being their hungry selves. Anand Ram, CBC News, Toronto.
Riley Lachuk joins us for what's turning out to be our daily how many records have we broken check.
Exactly. And the answer for yesterday, 24.
Wow.
In Manitoba. Some very warm temperatures as we experienced yesterday, especially in extreme southern Manitoba. We can have a look at some of those records now. And yeah, you can see some of these numbers quite impressive. McCreary for probably at least the second day in a row, maybe even the third day in a row, getting up above the 10-degree mark. 12 degrees yesterday, which was breaking a record from 1993. Morden breaking a record from 1941. The 1950s for Altona and Sprague, and Carmen breaking a record at from 1993 at 10 degrees yesterday. So those are some of the notable ones. Yeah, 24 records broken in Manitoba yesterday, and we're still seeing quite a bit of this warmth moving through. So -2 in Kenora right now, +3 in Regina in comparison, and 12 degrees in both Vancouver and Victoria, 6 in Kelowna, 8 in Calgary. South of the border, Fargo is at 3 degrees. Minneapolis is at 6, and still seeing some warmer temperatures even to the east, around the freezing mark for the Maritime provinces, and at 4 degrees in the GTA this hour. So many areas in the country seeing this warmth that we have been experiencing thanks to a Pacific flow that has really been bringing some of that damp Pacific air in our way. So temperatures at freezing around the Red River Valley at the moment, and really across most of southern Manitoba. -4 in Fort Frances right now, +3 at the moment in Melita, 0 in Roblin, -2 in Swan River. And in northern Manitoba, we're looking at temperatures around the freezing mark in the northwestern part of the province through the Pas and Flin Flon, but temperatures a bit cooler in Thompson and Churchill at -11. So looking at your forecast now for tonight, keep in mind fog advisories in place for a good chunk of southern Manitoba. -8 in Red Lake tonight with fog patches possible. -5 in Kenora. This is the region here in southeastern and southwestern Manitoba where we do have the possibility of some fog tonight. Temperatures around -3, -4 degrees for most of the region. Into the Brandon region as well, we're looking at temperatures of -6 in Brandon, -3 in Melita, with clearing skies we get through the night tonight, but still some clouds hanging around southern Manitoba into the early morning hours, and into northwestern or in northern Manitoba. Temperature rising in Flin Flon and the Pas, pardon me, to -1 by morning. Rising temperature as well in both Norway House and Thompson, as well as in Island Lake. And into your day tomorrow, we're looking at a bit more sun through northern Manitoba. 6 in the Pas and OCN tomorrow. 3 in Brandon, a little bit more sun as we get into the afternoon. 4s for Portage and the Morden region as well, and into the southeastern part of Manitoba around the freezing mark, and northwestern Ontario looking at temperatures around freezing as well. A little bit more sun as we get to the late afternoon. Janet.
Thanks very much, Riley.
You're welcome.
Up next, the unique exhibit at the Canadian Museum for Human Rights that explores music as a form of resistance and change. Stay with us. An interactive exhibit at the Canadian Museum for Human Rights aims to share with you some groundbreaking moments in music history, like when music broke down barriers for women or songs played an instrumental role in social transformation and political change. The exhibition is called Beyond the Beat, Music of Resistance and Change. It opens this Friday, but CBC's Jim Agapito got a sneak peek.
What does Public Enemy's Fight the Power and Elton John's dazzling stage outfits have in common? They inspired activism and change, and they're on display on a special exhibit here at the Human Rights Museum. Take me through the exhibit.
I'm so excited to show it to you. So we start with this sonic experience. This is, a big wow moment. We want people to get excited and think about the scale of music and human rights. And so this is your ticket here to get interaction with the exhibition. You're going to tap it on this circle here.
First off, what is this?
This is an RFID. It's like the tap to pay technology. We're calling it tap to play. And this is going to be your kind of VIP access. You're going to tap it and we're going to get performance clips, interview clips featuring some of your favorite artists.
Go to it
and tap.
The world changes by people like you grabbing the wheel of history.
We know there's so many connections between music and human rights, the way artists and audiences work together to use music as a tool to advance conversations about human rights. We really also focus on Canadian musicians and artists and Canadian movements for rights, and we really wanted to kind of elevate those stories.
The Canadian Radio, Television and Telecommunications Commission wanted to create a new FM radio station in the Toronto area.
We have this novelty-sized boombox that looks at the battle for a Black-owned radio station in Toronto that would play kind of Black music genres.
This is the Indigenous women's section. Over here we got the storytellers and visionaries. We got the lead here, Elizabeth Isaac, an artist. We got her outfit that she wore at the Polaris Gala and Awards ceremony in 2019. It's the only section of this exhibition that was curated with the help of a committee, the Indigenous Music Advisory Committee, with Fawn Wood, Oliver Boulette, and Kenny Starr. Dave McLeod also played an instrumental role. After talking with the Indigenous Music Advisory Committee, we really wanted it to just be a celebration of Indigenous excellence in the world of music.
One of the most fun parts has been reaching out to artists and saying like, hey, here's what we're doing. We're developing this exhibition. Are you interested? And we've had such enthusiastic responses, and artists have been so eager to kind of partner with us and display, their work. This is our last thematic section that looks like how music has been censored and suppressed, which really speaks to how powerful music is, that government has been afraid of it and understanding the power and has looked to censor it. As you tap, when we talk about lyrics in music, this is a song that had no lyrics. It was banned because the song itself, that tune, they thought could start violence, could start riot. Music is something that's really personal, right? I think most people have some sort of connection or experience with music that has kind of opened your heart, opened your mind. It's transformative. And so we thought this would be a great entry point for folks to learn more about what taking action, what engaging in activism for human rights looks like, while engaging in pop culture and some well-known artists.
Everybody has a role to play. I'm a musician, and for us, it's as artists.
That exhibit opens Friday at the Canadian Museum for Human Rights. And wait a minute, aren't Fridays free at the museum? You should check into that. Riley's back with your 7-day forecast. Then we have a daily lift for you when we return.
Here's a look at that fog advisory once again, covering the Brandon region down to Killarney, Pilot Mound, pretty much along the Trans-Canada corridor between Winnipeg and Brandon. So if you have any travel to do tonight, watch for patches of near or zero visibility tonight on the highways. Waking up tomorrow morning to -1 in Winnipeg, 0 by noon, south winds 15 to 30 and 2 degrees tomorrow afternoon. A little bit optimistic with the sun, I think, but I think we will start to see a little bit more sun as we get into the afternoon as that cloud starts to push out. But the clouds build in once again for Sunday. 3s for both Saturday and Sunday, with a chance of showers, a chance of flurries, Janet, by the time we get to Wednesday of next week, and temperatures still pretty much above the freezing mark. Well, ice shack, Stutter Lake's here in Manitoba, of course, but on a lake north of Regina, one shack looks a lot different than the others.
It certainly does. Ethan Williams went to check it out for himself in tonight's Daily Lift.
Where did you find this plane?
Facebook Marketplace, the best place to shop. When I saw it, it was a no-brainer right away. And then I sent it to these guys, and we all thought it'd be a great idea to turn it into a shack. So,
what was the owner's reaction when you said that's what we're planning to do?
He sent me a whole lot of ha-ha's. I was all cleared out on the inside, like no seats, no paneling, nothing. So we took out all the insulation and all the wiring and all that kind of stuff, cut that all out, lightened it up some, and then got it spray foamed. Made an aircraft carrier for the bottom with just an axle with some tires to get it down to the lake, and then made some skis to bolt on to where the tires go to drag it on the lake.
All right, I'll head inside. Pretty much thought it'd be hilarious, but we should definitely do it. And we had to do it. We got catch covers over our holes here. These just pop out so you can fish through the floor there. We Google searched ice shack airplane and nothing came up, so we didn't figure nobody's done it before, and it would make a great plane as it's light and insulated and airtight. In case we ever have a fire, we got the emergency exit working. We just pop this out and leave on the wing. We only have 4 holes, but we can seat like 18 people, so it's not the most practical, but it's great for our kids and stuff to put everyone inside and keep warm. The steering wheels and controls and everything still function. You can move them around. The kids love to play at the front here, pretend like they're flying.
Where do you like to sit in the plane?
Right in the cockpit's the best spot, and you can look down the runway at the tip-ups. We'll probably do some upgrades over the summertime here and have it back out next year.
What kind of upgrades?
Oh, it's kind of top secret right now, but we got some big plans.
Okay, so now we need to check in with them again next year and find out what they've done. What they've done to that.
That's pretty darn cool.
It is very, very cool indeed. And if they get hungry on the plane, they don't have to wait for any service. They just kind of fish it up. Thank you so much for being with us.
Have a good evening.